For 2018, what do you see happening in terms of European monetary union and the Eurozone in particular?
Well, I do hope that first of all we will have a government in Germany so that all the decisions that have to be taken in Europe, and particularly in the Eurozone, will be taken also with Germany being present and in a position to act and decide. Now, the Commission has just put forward a number of proposals for intensifying or deepening, as you would say, the union, monetary union and economic union. And I think that the next year will be decisive as to whether those proposals will come into force or not. Now, I personally think some of these propositions are quite useful and should be pursued and eventually implemented, but others, of course, are, in my opinion, not giving the right incentives, because they are, in a way, inviting member states to not to do the necessary reforms, but simply hope on some sort of transfer from other countries. So, in essence, what I do hope is that we make progress, that we can transfer the European Stability Mechanism into a kind of European Monetary Fund that will work along the lines that the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. works, and that we overall are in a position to really foster growth, create new jobs, and also be innovative.
And what about a European finance minister? Does that matter?
Well, yes, it does matter, because it depends upon what the competence of a European finance minister is. I mean, the proposal that President Macron put forward is different from what the Commission put forward. The Commission says we should have a European finance and economics minister that is a member of the Commission, and at the same time he will become the president of the Eurogroup. Now, in that capacity, he is very similar to Senora Mogherini, who is in charge of foreign affairs. I can see that, because then the position would be a position member of the Commission, and the person, whether it's a man or a woman, would be in charge of really controlling the member states, making sure that they live up to their promises, that they keep their promises, that their budgets are all right, etc. That is fine. It's not somebody that sits on some money and sort of feels he or she is entitled to redistribute that money. That would be different. So if the approach that the Commission has chosen, if implemented properly, can work.
So is that a no to a deposit insurance scheme and some sort of fiscal transfer scheme?
Well, it certainly would be a no to the fiscal transfer scheme at this point in time. I think also in countries that are skeptical when it comes to the EDIS, the European Deposit Insurance Scheme, like Germany and others, Holland, etc., I don't think that they are against it per se. They realize that the Pillar 3 of the banking union is a European deposit scheme. But what they are saying, and I must say I sympathize with that position right now, is as long as we have banks that are full of non-performing loans, 40% in Greece, up to 25 or 30% in Italy, compared to less than 5% in Germany, for instance, and other countries. As long as that is the level of risk is so uneven, we cannot mutualize the guarantees, because that would be a kind of invitation to those non-performing banks to say, well, hey, we are safe home, basically. Whenever something goes wrong, somebody else stands ready to inject some fresh money, so we do not have to control our risk any further. And that should be event. We have to, this is true for the whole of the EU, and for the EMU in particular, we have to make sure that risk-taking and deciding and responsibility for the outcome of the decisions are together. You know, we cannot split it.
You're an FDP MEP. Yes. Will we be seeing a finance minister? Will Angela Merkel choose an FDP finance minister?
Well, it's not even sure that we will end up in government, because you see the so-called first preliminary talks have failed. And Mrs. Merkel and her Christian Democratic Party are now talking again to the Social Democrats. So if that coalition came to life, then of course it would be, I would even guess it would remain to me a CDU finance minister, and Altmaier, who is acting finance minister now, would then become a permanent finance minister. If those discussions collapse, there's no guarantee that the Grand Coalition will continue, then again, then the CDU will have all ministers, and Altmaier will also remain a minister. So for the time being, I think the chances that the CDU finance minister will be in office a few months from now are far bigger than it will be an FDP minister.